Where am I?
This place! This is Karen 9. Nobody survives here.
Smoke filled her lungs before her mind understood where she was. Aria's eyes opened to red light, flashing again and again through cracked metal. The ship was dead. Around her, twisted steel groaned like something dying. Sparks fell from broken wires, hissing against the wet floor. Somewhere far off, an alarm kept crying out, weak and useless, like it already knew no one was coming. She tried to move. Pain answered first. Sharp, burning, deep in her side. Her hand found blood, warm. Too much of it. "Get up," a voice in her head said. "Get up now." She had heard that voice before, back home, back when the drills were only drills. Now it was real. Now it was the only thing keeping her breathing. Aria pulled herself free from the wreckage inch by inch, teeth clenched so hard her jaw ached. Every human instinct screamed at her to stay still, to wait, to hope for rescue. But something colder and older inside her, something built by generations of humans who had learned to survive worse than this, pushed her forward instead. She crawled through the broken hull and into the open air, and the world she found stole the breath from her chest. The sky was the color of dried blood. Ash drifted down like slow, endless snow. In the distance, mountains cracked open glowed orange from rivers of fire beneath the earth. The wind carried a smell she had never known, sulfur and something else, something alive. She knew this place. Every soldier knew its name, whispered like a curse in every mess hall across the fleet. Karen 9, the graveyard planet. The world where 3 Empire invasion fleets had entered and never left. Aria's legs shook beneath her, but she forced herself to stand, scanning the wreckage for other survivors. There were none. Just her. Just the fire and the ash and the terrible silence pressing down from that endless red sky. Then the silence broke. A sound rolled across the ridge, low, deep, impossibly large. A growl that seemed to come from the ground itself. Aria froze. Every hair on her arms rose. Her human body wanted to run, to scream, to hide. But she didn't move. She couldn't. Because some deeper part of her, the part every Empire scout had underestimated for centuries, was already calculating, watching, waiting to see what kind of monster called this dead world home. Rocks trembled near her feet. Dust lifted from the ground in small, rhythmic bursts, like something enormous was walking closer, one heavy step at a time. Aria's breath caught in her throat. She turned slowly, toward the sound, and found herself staring into the ash fog, where a shape was forming, massive, dark, wings folding out like something torn from a nightmare. 2 eyes opened in the smoke, glowing an unnatural burning blue. They were looking straight at her. And for the first time since the crash, Aria Voss understood. She was not the deadliest thing on this planet. Not yet. The creature stepped fully into view, and Aria's mind went blank with terror. It was massive, taller than the wrecked ship behind her, its black-armored, scales catching the dim orange light of the volcanoes. Wings, wide as a starship's hull, folded slightly as it moved. Its glowing blue eyes never left her face. Every step it took shook small stones loose from the ground. Aria's body screamed at her to run. But running from something this size was pointless. She had seen enough training footage of Death Worlder predators to know the truth. If it wanted her dead, she already would be. So she did the only thing left. She stood still, and she waited. The Warden lowered its head, bringing one massive eye, level with her own. Hot breath rolled over her, smelling of ash and iron. She could see herself reflected in that glowing blue eye, small and shaking. A long, clawed foot pressed down inches from her boots. This is it, she thought. This is how it ends. But the killing blow never came. Instead, the creature's head turned in sharply toward the wreckage behind her. A sound rose from deep in its throat, not a roar this time, but something almost like pain. Aria followed its gaze and saw it. A smaller shape, curled beside a crushed section of hull. A baby. The same black scales, the same faint blue veins glowing beneath its skin, but tiny and horribly still. The adult warden moved past Aria like she no longer existed, kneeling beside its young with a gentleness that didn't match its size at all. It nudged the small body with its snout. Nothing happened. Without thinking, Aria's training kicked in. Medic instincts older than her fear pulled her forward. She dropped to her knees beside the baby creature, ignoring every warning in her mind, and pressed her hands against its chest. A weak, fluttering heartbeat answered beneath her palms. "It's alive," she whispered. "It's just alive." She tore a strip from her jacket and pressed it against a wound near the baby's shoulder, working fast, the way she'd been trained to save human soldiers on 100 simulated battlefields. She didn't look up. She didn't dare. When she finally did glance up, the adult warden was watching her. Not attacking. Not growling. Just watching. Its glowing eyes narrowed with something that looked, impossibly, like understanding. For a long, breathless moment, nothing moved on that ash-covered ridge. Just a human girl, kneeling in the dirt beside a monster's child, and the monster itself deciding whether to let her live. Then slowly, the great creature lowered itself down beside them both and closed its eyes. Aria didn't move for a long time. She barely breathed. She had no way of knowing it yet, but somewhere far above Karen 9's blood-red sky, a signal had just begun blinking on an old Empire scanner. Someone else had survived the crash, and they were already watching her. 3 days passed before Aria trusted her own eyes. The warden, she had started calling it Calith, a name that came to her in a dream she couldn't explain, never left her side. Neither did the baby, now healing, now strong enough to stumble, after her on unsteady legs. Aria found herself falling into a strange rhythm, gathering water from mineral pools, building fire from dead brush, watching the great creature hunt for both of them in the ash fog each night. She was surviving. Somehow, impossibly, she was surviving. Then, on the 4th morning, she found the scanner. It was half buried near the wreck, an old Empire tracking unit, its screen cracked but still glowing faint green. Her hands shook as she lifted it. A signal blinked steadily on the display, not from her ship, from somewhere else on the ridge. Someone was alive. Calith rose the moment she stood, its low growl vibrating through the ground, but Aria raised a hand. "Wait," she whispered, though she wasn't sure the creature understood or if it simply chose to listen. She followed the signal half a kilometer through jagged black rock, her heart hammering louder with every step. And then she saw him, a man in a torn Empire uniform kneeling behind a boulder, a rifle aimed steady at her chest. "Don't move," he said. His voice was rough, tired, afraid. "Don't you dare move." "I'm human," Aria said quickly, hands raised. "Colony ship. We crashed. I know what crashed." His eyes flicked past her to the massive shape now emerging from the fog behind her, and his face drained of color. "That's a warden. A full-grown warden. You're standing next to the deadliest predator in the sector, and you're worried about me? It hasn't hurt me. It will." He lowered the rifle slightly, though his hand still trembled. "My name is Dane. I was sent here before the crash, bounty tracker contracted by 3 different empires. My job was to confirm if Warden still nested on this planet." He swallowed hard. "They do. And Command already knows." Aria's stomach turned cold. "What does that mean?" Dane looked up at the ash-red sky, and for the first time real fear crossed his face. "It means extraction ships are already inbound. They don't want to study that creature, Aria. They want to weaponize it. and they will kill anything standing in their way, including you. Behind her, Kalith let out a low, warning growl, sensing the danger in the man's voice. "We need to move," Dane said, rising fast, scanning the horizon. "Now, before—" The sky answered him first. A streak of white fire tore through the clouds above the valley, followed by another and another. The ground trembled. Somewhere in the crimson clouds, engines roared to life, massive, mechanical, and closing fast. Dane's face went pale as he stared upward. They're already here. Part 4. The ships broke through the clouds like falling stars, engines screaming, weapons already glowing red-hot. "Cover!" Dane shouted, pulling Aria behind a jagged rock as the first blast tore into the ridge, throwing fire and stone into the air. Kalith roared, shielding the baby Warden with its massive body as debris rained down around them. Soldiers dropped from the ships on cables, black armor gleaming, rifles already raised. Their leader's voice boomed through a speaker. "Target confirmed. Neutralize the human. Capture the creatures alive." Aria's blood ran cold. Capture alive? "For weapons research," Dane said grimly, dragging her lower as bolts of energy cracked overhead. "I told you." Kalith didn't wait for orders. It moved like a nightmare given shape. Fast, brutal, unstoppable, swatting one soldier aside. With a single wing strike, but there were too many. A crackling net of blue energy shot from a heavy cannon, wrapping around the great creature's legs, dropping it hard against the rocks. It thrashed, snarling, trapped. "No!" Aria screamed, running forward before Dane could stop her. A soldier turned his rifle on her instantly. "Compromised witness. Command authorizes elimination." "Wait!" Dane shouted, too far to reach her. The soldier's finger tightened on the trigger. Aria froze, staring straight into the barrel, the baby Warden crying out behind her in fear. Then the ground shattered. Kalith's scream ripped through the valley, raw and furious, shaking the very mountains as the stasis net around its legs cracked, then burst apart in a wave of blue light. The soldier never got the chance to fire. Aria barely had time to breathe before the massive creature surged forward, eyes blazing brighter than she had ever seen them, not to protect itself. But her. Kalith moved like something out of an old war story, the kind soldiers whispered about but never believed. One wing swept 3 soldiers off their feet before they could fire again. Its claws tore through armor like paper. Energy bolts struck. Its scales and did nothing but scorch the black surface, sparking uselessly against something far tougher than any weapon command had accounted for. Aria pressed herself against the rocks, watching in stunned silence as the creature that had gently rested beside her days before became something else entirely. Something ancient. Something that had survived on this death world for longer than any empire's history books could explain. Dane grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "We need to move now before—" An explosion cut him off. One of the landing ships, struck by a stray energy blast, spiraled sideways and crashed into the ridge, sending fire and smoke rolling across the valley. Soldiers scrambled, shouting orders that no longer made sense, their formation collapsing into chaos. The commanding officer's voice cracked through the comms, no longer confident. "Fall back! All units! Fall back to the ship!" But Kalith wasn't finished. It turned toward the retreating soldiers, low growl rising into something closer to a warning than an attack, a message as old as instinct itself: leave and never return. The remaining troops didn't need to be told twice. What was left of the strike team scrambled onto their ship, engines screaming as it tore back up through the ash-red clouds, leaving scorched earth and broken armor behind. Silence fell over the valley once more. Aria ran to Kalith's side, breath shaking, hands trembling as she saw the deep wounds along its flank, burns from the energy weapons, blood darker than any human staining the black scales. The great creature lowered itself slowly to the ground, exhausted, its glowing eyes dimming with pain. "You didn't have to do that," Aria whispered, pressing her hands against the largest wound, doing what little she could. Kalith's only answer was a low, tired rumble, and for the first time since the crash, It lowered its massive head into her lap, trusting her completely. Dane stood a few feet away, staring at the two of them in disbelief. "They're not going to stop," he said quietly. "You understand that, right? What just happened here? A warden defending a human? That's not just a rumor anymore. That's confirmed. Every empire in this sector is going to hear about it within hours." Aria looked up at him, exhaustion and fear plain on her face. "Then what happens now?" Dane's expression darkened as he looked toward the sky, where the retreating ship had vanished into the clouds. "Now everyone wants what you have." That night, far above Karen 9's blood-colored atmosphere, dozens of ships began gathering at the edge of the system. Not one empire, but several, each receiving the same impossible report, each unwilling to let the others claim it first. What had started as a routine extraction had just become something far bigger. A war. By dawn, the sky above Karen 9 was no longer empty. Dozens of warships hung in the ash-red clouds, banners from 3 rival empires visible on their hulls, rivals who had never once stood side by side, now circling the same prize. Aria stood on the ridge beside Kalith, the baby warden pressed close against her leg, watching the fleets descend like a storm made of steel. "They're not here to negotiate," Dane said, his voice tight. "They're here to take what they want, and burn whoever's left." Aria's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "Then they'll have to go through both of us." Kalith rose to its full height beside her, wings spreading wide against the burning sky, a living wall between Aria and the descending armada. The baby warden let out a small, defiant cry, echoing its parent. The lead ship's comm crackled open, broadcasting across the valley. "Human, step aside. The creature is Empire property. This is your only warning." Aria looked up at the ships, at the thousands of soldiers ready to fire, and felt something inside her that wasn't fear anymore. "You had this planet for centuries," she said, her voice carrying across the ridge. "You called it a graveyard. You ran from it. And now you want to take the one thing here that chose to protect someone instead of destroying them." Silence answered her. Then the first shot came. What followed was chaos too fast for words. Energy, fire lighting the clouds, Kalith moving, like a force of nature, tearing through hulls, shielding Aria with its own body again and again. Dane fought beside her, and for every ship that landed, fewer soldiers walked away. By the time the sun broke fully over the ridge, the armadas were retreating, not defeated by weapons, but by something no empire had a strategy for. A bond, stronger than fear. The rival fleets pulled back into orbit one by one, leaving burning wreckage scattered across Karen 9's black stone. Aria sank to her knees, exhausted, as Kalith lowered its head beside her, breathing hard, but alive. The baby warden climbed into her lap, and for a moment the valley was quiet again. Dane stood over them, staring at the retreating ships. "This isn't over," he said softly. "You didn't just save yourself today. You started something bigger than any of us understand yet." Far above, one small scout ship lingered behind the retreating fleet, its sensors locked on Aria's position, silently recording everything. Someone, somewhere, had just decided she was worth watching.